Why are you looking at me like I've stolen something?
Because men like you don't usually walk in here dressed like that.
I'm just here to do my business, not to entertain anyone.
Well, you're certainly noticeable. Can't say that goes unnoticed in a place like this.
Why are you looking at me like I've stolen something? The old man asked, his voice low, controlled, but vibrating with something dangerous underneath. Because men like you don't usually walk in here dressed like that, the young teller replied, her lips curling into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. It was a verdict. The words didn't just land. They struck hard, like a slap disguised as politeness. The bank was cold. Not just the air conditioning humming above like a mechanical insect, but cold in the way people can be cold, measured, judging, sterile. The marble floors gleamed under artificial light. Everything about the place screamed order, control, quiet compliance. And there he stood, 68 years old, dark-skinned, spine straight, wearing a bright orange jacket that refused to blend into beige walls and beige minds. He felt the shift immediately. The room had tilted the second he stepped in. Conversations lowered, eyes lifted, heads turned, not curious, not welcoming, assessing. Men like you. That's what she said. Not customers. Not sir. Not Mr. Johnson. Men like you. His fingers tightened around the worn leather of his wallet. Those hands had built houses, carried steel beams, repaired engines until the grease became permanent under his fingernails. Those hands had held newborn babies and lowered coffins into graves. Those hands had signed tax forms for 43 years straight. But in this room, they saw threat. They saw color before character. He had chosen that jacket on purpose. Bright, bold, alive. After retirement, promised himself he would stop dressing to survive and start dressing to live. For decades he wore muted tones, navy, gray, brown, colors that made him less noticeable, less intimidating, less loud. But today he wore orange because he liked orange, because it made him feel visible in a world that tried to erase him. And apparently, visibility was offensive. The teller tapped her acrylic nails on the counter. Click, 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 impatient rhythm, like she was waiting for him to justify. Existing, her eyes weren't afraid. They were superior. That subtle kind of superiority that doesn't shout but implies, you don't belong here. He could feel the heat rising up his spine. Not embarrassment. Never embarrassment. Anger. Ancient anger. The kind passed down like heirlooms through generations of swallowed humiliation. He had been here before, not in this bank, but in this moment. The first time a teacher assumed he wasn't smart because of his skin. The first time a police officer asked what he was doing in this neighborhood. The first time a manager called him aggressive for speaking with confidence. Different rooms. Same script. And here it was again. Recycled and polished. Is there a problem with my clothing? He asked evenly. Each word sharpened like a blade. The teller's smile tightened. It's just unusual. Unusual. That word again. The soft weapon. The polite insult. The language of exclusion dressed as observation. Unusual meant to bright. Unusual meant to bold. Unusual meant to present. Unusual meant to black. Unusual meant to black. Unusual meant to much. He could feel eyes digging into his back now. A man in a suit pretending to scroll on his phone. A woman clutching a handbag a little tighter. Sakura glancing over from across the room. It always amazed him how quickly dignity turned into suspicion when worn by dark skin. He leaned slightly forward, not threatening, but grounded. Rooted. I came to deposit a check, he said calmly. That's all. But it was never just that. Because the check in his hand represented decades of labor, of discipline, of showing up every day when the world gave him reasons not to. That check represented stability. And stability in the wrong body. Unsettled people. He noticed how the teller's tone shifted when the man behind him stepped forward to the neighboring counter. The smile for him was effortless. The greeting warm, the posture relaxed. No hesitation, no scanning, no judgment, just transaction. And that contrast. The old man inhaled slowly, deeply. He refused to let his breathing betray. He refused to let his breathing betray him. He refused to give them trembling. He refused to give them shrinkage. He had shrunk enough in his life. He remembered being twinnify, lowering his voice so white co-workers wouldn't call him intense. He remembered nodding through racist jokes because confronting them meant risking employment. He remembered smiling through disrespect because survival required swallowing pride, but survival was no longer the goal. Dignity was. I don't appreciate being looked at like a criminal, he said. And now the tremor in his voice wasn't weakness, it was thunder being held back. The teller stiffened. Sir, no one said that. You didn't have to, he replied. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded, thick, pressurized. Because everyone in that room knew exactly what had happened. No one said criminal, but everyone felt it. That's how prejudice works. It breathes in glances, it whispers in tone. It hides in words like unusual. And men like you, His heart pounded hard enough he could hear it in his ears. But beneath the anger was something deeper, a fierce refusal. He would not lower his head. He would not apologize for color. He would not mute his personality to soothe fragile comfort. His skin was not a disruption. His confidence was not arrogance. His presence was not an invasion. He had every right to stand on that polished marble floor. Every right to wear brightness, every right to occupy space without shrinking. The fluorescent lights above buzzed again, harsh and artificial. He almost laughed at the irony. They preferred artificial brightness to authentic color. He slid the check across the counter with steady hands. "Do your job," he said quietly. Not loud, not explosive, but firm. And in that firmness was decades of endurance hardened into steel. The teller hesitated for it, just a second too long before taking it. That hesitation spoke volumes. He noticed everything. He had always noticed everything. That was the burden of being the other, constant awareness, constant scanning, constant calculating. And he was tired, tired of proving, tired of softening, tired of translating his existence into something digestible. The anger in his chest wasn't wild, it was controlled fire. The kind that forges iron heat. Glanced around one more time. Let them look, let them whisper, let them judge. He wasn't the one exposed in that moment. They were. Because when you mark a man for his color and personality, you don't reveal. "Did you see his color? He looked so out of place," the woman whispered sharply to the man beside her, her words laced with disdain. "And that attitude, like he owns the room," he added, smirking like they were sharing a private joke, "at someone else's expense." The old man heard them, every syllable slicing through him like a knife sharpened on decades of repeated prejudice. Out of place. The word clung to his skin, twisted inside his chest. He didn't need them to say it. He had grown up knowing what it meant to be out of place. To be measured, judged, assumed wrong because of the color of his skin and the strength of his personality. He had learned to carry that weight like armor, to walk straight even when the world bent against him. And yet, the sting never dulled. It never would. He turned his head slowly, deliberately, letting them see his eyes meet theirs. The woman's gaze darted away instantly. The man stiffened, caught off guard. Cowardice always hid behind pretense. It had always been this way, whispers, half-lies, quiet poison. They believed their judgments could be invisible, untouchable. He saw everything he always did. Every glance, every twitch, every small smirk meant something. And it all had meaning. "You have something to say?" he asked quietly, voice low but vibrating with authority. Not rage yet, not fire, but enough to let them know he had noticed. The man coughed, trying to cover his embarrassment with laughter. "We were just talking," he said quickly, tone nervous now. "About me," the old man said, sharper, more deliberate. A flush of awkwardness swept over them. The woman adjusted her posture, crossing her arms defensively. The man's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. They wanted it to be casual, comfortable, just a joke, but he would not let their words drift harmlessly into air. They had weight. They had history. Every whisper carried a centuries-long echo of prejudice, a lineage of people like him told to shrink, to fade, to survive quietly in spaces that were technically theirs as much as anyone else's. He remembered sitting in classrooms as a boy, ears full of whispers, teachers explaining to others that he was different, children staring, adults laughing, society silently saying, "This is not your place." And yet he survived. He endured. He learned to walk with dignity, even when the world did not offer him a reason to. That dignity had been hard-won, forged like steel in the fires of subtle cruelty and outright discrimination. "You're confident, aren't you?" the man muttered finally, trying to sound casual but failing. "Yes," the old man replied, slow, firm, unapologetic. "And that is not a crime." The woman's lips parted as if to interrupt, but no words came. Confidence in a man like him was always seen as arrogance. Happiness was a threat. Presence was an invasion. A man who could laugh freely, speak boldly, and exist fully, that man was dangerous to their fragile assumptions. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from something older, a legacy of anger, frustration, and generations of family who had been judged for color, mocked for pride, diminished for refusing to disappear. And now, here it was again, recycled in modern clothes and polite tones. The old man's chest rose and fell like slow drums. He could feel his heart pounding under his ribs, not in panic, but in focus. Every beat was a declaration. "I will not shrink." "You're making it about yourself," the man finally said, leaning back slightly, trying to reclaim authority in the conversation. "No," the old man replied evenly, voice quiet but cutting like glass. "I am making it about you, about your assumptions, about your comfort at the expense of someone else's humanity." A few other customers were now looking up, sensing the tension. Some were shifting nervously in their seats, unsure how to react. Some were curious, drawn by the sharpness in the old man's calm voice. But the old man did not care about witnesses. He cared about himself, about not ceding another inch of dignity to subtle cruelty. He could feel years of practiced patience ready to ignite, but he held it back. Patience had served him for survival, but now it had transformed into defiance. "You're taking this too seriously," the woman whispered finally, more defensive than before. "Taking it seriously," the old man echoed, voice rising slightly, a controlled fire sparking behind his eyes. "Do you know what it is to be reminded constantly that you are different, that you do not belong, that your joy, your color, your presence is a problem for others? That is seriousness." A bead of sweat formed on the man's temple. He laughed nervously. "It's just a bank. It's just a bank," the old man repeated, leaning slightly forward, gaze drilling through him. "It is a bank where I, like everyone else, pay my money, my taxes, my life's work. And yet, here, my existence is treated like a spectacle." His voice carried through the room, steady, deliberate. It was not a scream. It was truth. The whispers ceased. The casual mockery faltered under the weight of words unspoken for decades finally given voice. People shifted, uncomfortable with a confrontation they had assumed would never be public. They wanted him small, quiet, dismissible. They wanted laughter and entertainment. Instead they received defiance, clarity, presence, pride. "You want to know what is out of place," he said, voice low, controlled, dangerous. "Your assumption, your laughter, your inability to see me as a human being rather than a caricature of color and personality." The man opened his mouth to speak, then shut it. The woman's hands fidgeted nervously with her pen. The room had grown quiet, all eyes on the old man standing tall in bright orange, calm but unrelenting. "I am not out of place," he said finally, voice ringing with authority. "Prejudices." The words hung heavy. Silence stretched. No one laughed. No one whispered. No one moved. He allowed himself a small, satisfied exhale. Not relief, not victory, but recognition. He had refused to be small, and in refusing he exposed their discomfort.